Good morning, ladies and gentlemen across the state of California, and welcome to the California High-Speed Rail Authority Board of Directors meeting for June the 25th. We are happy you're with us, and for those of you who plan to address us, we look forward to your comments. This morning, we start, if we will, from the Secretary. Can you please call the order?
Good morning. Director Schenk.
Present.
Acting Chair Richards.
Here.
Director Camacho.
Here.
Director Miller.
Here.
Senator Bell. Assemblymember Arambula.
Present.
Director Perea.
Here.
Director Guillemette.
Present.
Director Escutia.
Here.
Director Boutros.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. If we can bring the flag up, I'd appreciate it. Ernie, if you would like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
Under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
for all.
Thank you, Ernie. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to make a couple of quick announcements before we actually start the agenda. As for those of you who may be joining us and be making public comment, you are not restricted in terms of any of the subject matter you wish to address to the board. I do want to point out for those of you who may not have looked at our agenda on the website since Monday of this week, that as a result of discussions between legislative leaders and the governor, our item number 4, I believe, which is the 2020 business plan, is being extended and will be heard in December of 2020. So you and from the public, again, who want to address us, you can certainly make comments with regards to the business plan if that's what you intended to do. But we will not be having that hearing on the business plan today. There will be a bit more information on this in our CEO's report in a few moments. Again, also with regards to public comments, if you would hold your comments to two minutes, and you will be directed by Mo, who's going to handle the public comments for us. Beyond that, before we get into the agenda, I want to let my colleagues know that we're going to move the CEO report that's currently shown on your agenda at number 8. We're going to move that up to 1. So with that, Mo, if you would take care of helping people around the state who wish to address us.
Of course.
Thank you. And there is a short lapse in this while Mo does whatever he does with the magic in his office to determine who's first.
All right. So today we're hosting this meeting via Zoom. In a moment, we will take public comment. Prior, I will give you instructions for public comment by Zoom and public comment by phone. For public comment by Zoom, if you are logged into this meeting via Zoom, please use the raise your hand feature, typically located at the bottom of your screen, so that I can call on you to provide your comment. Public comment by phone instructions. If you're dialing in by phone, pressing *9 will raise your hand and put you into our queue. Speakers will be called in the order that their hand is raised. Once you've been in the queue and your name is called, in the web meeting, please click prompt on your screen to allow your microphone to be unmuted. On the phone, we will call on you by the last 4 digits of your phone number. At that point, you'll hear a message that you're being unmuted. Once unmuted, it will be your turn to speak. Please slowly and clearly say and spell your first and last name. And if applicable, state the organization you represent. Our court reporter is on the line to record those comments. If they need you to spell or repeat something, they may interject. After your introduction, each speaker is allotted 2 minutes to provide comments. You will hear a timer beeping once you go over the 2 minutes. At the end of your comment, we will disable your microphone. However, you are welcome to stay on the line to continue watching or listening to the meeting. If you do not wish to provide comment and simply want to watch the meeting, you can do so by logging onto our website, hsr.ca.gov, and looking for the link to our live stream on our homepage. And that is the instructions. And we have as our first public comment, Misty Awatsu. And then after her, we have David Schwagel.
Good morning, and thank you for listening to me. My name is Misty Iwatsu, Mistyiwatsu. I would like to request an extension regarding the draft of the Los Angeles project section of the environmental impact report and statement to have the public comment phase extended until the moratorium on the public locations is either lifted or until January 31st, 2021. The Lincoln Heights community, which this is impacting, primarily consists of Latino, low-income seniors, and essential workers. Many of these do not, cannot afford basic internet or computer services and rely on their community libraries that are now closed to be able to get their information. Right now, they have no idea that this report even came out. They are not able to view it. And so we'd like to have this extended so that we can at least outreach to them and let them know what this report is and how it's going to impact them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Watson. If I may, this is obviously an important issue for us. And so I'm going to ask our CEO to ensure that that management addresses whatever is necessary in order to provide the time for the public to respond and to, if it needs to be brought to the board to let us know what's actually been done, we'd appreciate it. It may be easier just to provide us with some written information with regards to how we're gonna manage that. Go ahead.
Okay, David Schwagel.
This is David Schwagel. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. David, D-A-V-I-D, Schwagel, S-C-H-W-E-G-E-L, with Apex, A-P-E-X, Civil Engineering. Shining the light on 3 of your remarkable consultants. First, 5 years ago, Precision Civil Engineering and the Valiance Group designed routes that worked, wrote the Connected Corridor study, and rallied the troops between Merced and Sacramento, all within the confines of a very small $1 million budget. We saw the fruits of their labor through the positive public comment during February's board meeting in Sacramento. Second, Harrison Associates has a leadership academy, and it shows in the camaraderie and teamwork that they bring to conferences and their thoughtful social media posts on diversity, inclusion, and Black Lives Matter. Third, I had a great discussion with my REMI colleagues this week. REMI stands for Regional Economic Models Incorporated, and the discussion was on the side-by-side study prepared by your ETO, DB Engineering and Consulting. They have a rail academy, and they are diligently educating their social media networks on the benefits of the program. Finally, in closing, your program's future looks bright, as being packed in flying sardine cans is quickly losing its appeal to the more spacious travel environments afforded by your program, especially for short-haul journeys. Keep up the great work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schwagel.
Okay, we have Leanne, but prior to her public comment, I'm just going to go over the instructions again. We had a few attendees join after it. So instructions for public comment by Zoom. If you are logged into this meeting via Zoom, please use the raise your hand feature, typically located at the bottom of your screen, so that we can call on you to provide your public comment. Public comment by phone. If you're dialing in by phone, pressing *9 will raise your hand and put you into our queue. Speakers will be called in that order that their hand is raised. Once you've been in the queue and your name is called in the web meeting, please click prompt on your screen to allow your microphone to be unmuted. On the phone, we will call on you by the last 4 digits of your phone number. At that point, you'll hear that message that you are being unmuted. Once unmuted, it will be your turn to speak. Please slowly and clearly say and spell your first and last name and if applicable, state the organization you are representing. Our court reporter is on the line to record these comments, and she may interject if she needs you to spell or repeat something. That is the instructions, and right now we have public comment for Leanne Eager.
Good morning, Leanne.
There we go. I just wanted to say a few words. This is Leanne Eager, Leeann. My last name is Eager. I'm with the Fresno County Economic Development Corporation. I wanted to say a few words about Diana Gomez. I know she is listening. And Diana, I just wanted to thank you for all the years of service to this important project. We've been working together to try to get this initial section up and moving for many years now. And I know we wouldn't be this far if it hadn't been for you. At the beginning, before Diana came on, it was a slow going process, but once she was hired, things changed. We were able to go to meetings. We were able to get people together. We were able to make accommodations for folks. And I know her dedication to this project is unsurpassed by anyone that has ever worked on the project and probably ever will. But I know she's going to do wonderful things over at Caltrans. Some of you may have heard that I have just been sworn in to the California Transportation Commission. So she and I will continue to work on transportation issues throughout the state of California. And Diana, I wish you well. Thank you.
Leanne, thank you. And from us, congratulations on your appointment by the governor last week. And we'll obviously hear great things about you in the years to come. But thank you also for your support for this project over the years.
Next in queue, we have Mayor Puri, but I'm going to go over the instructions one more time for the attendees that just joined. If you are logged into this meeting via Zoom, please use the raise your hand feature, typically located at the bottom of your screen, so that we can call on you to provide your comment. If you're dialing in by phone, pressing *9 will raise your hand and put you into our queue. Speakers will be called in the order that their hand is raised. Once you've been in the queue and your name is called, in the web meeting, please click the prompt on your screen to allow your microphone to be unmuted. On the phone, we will call on you by the last 4 digits of your phone number. At that point, you'll hear a message that you are being unmuted. Once unmuted, it will be your turn to speak. Please slowly and clearly say and spell your first and last name, and if applicable, state the organization you represent. Our court reporter is on the line to record those comments. If they need you to spell something or repeat something, they may interject. And Mayor Puri, you can give your public comment.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Mayur Puri, Mayurpuri. I'm from India. I've been associated on this project through LinkedIn. I'm getting updates through it. My question is, what is the status of the project? And what kind of technology is being adopted? It's European high-speed technology or it's Japanese high-speed technology. I'm working on a similar project in India, that is working for National High-Speed Rail Corporation Limited, and we are also executing the similar project. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Curry.
Currently, we don't have anybody with the raised hand, but I'm going to go over the instructions one more time to ensure that everybody that just joined had the opportunity to give public comment.
Okay, thank you, Mo.
Instructions for public comment by Zoom. If you are logged into this meeting via Zoom, please use the raise your hand feature typically located at the bottom of your screen so that we can call on you to provide your comment. Public comment by phone. If you're dialing in by phone, pressing *9 will raise your hand and put you into our queue. Speakers will be called in the order that their hand is raised. Once you've been in the queue and your name is called, in the web meeting, please click the prompt on your screen to allow your microphone to be unmuted. On the phone, we will call on you by the last 4 digits of your phone number. At that point, you'll hear a message that you are being unmuted. Once unmuted, it will be your turn to speak. Please slowly and clearly say and spell your first and last name, and if applicable, state the organization you represent. Our court reporter is on the line to record those comments. If they need you to spell or repeat something, they may interject. Acting Chair Richards, no one has raised their hand, but we just did have a few attendees join. So I would give them a minute.
All right, so they are attendees, but not those who are speaking?
Yeah, they haven't. Oh, they just raised a hand for a Stuart Flashman.
Okay, Stuart.
Good morning.
Good.
I wanted to make a short comment in terms of what your plans are for the future. And it has to do with the compliance with the provisions of Prop 1A. And in particular, I want to point out the fact that Prop 1A puts a number of pretty stringent restrictions on how high-speed rail bond funds can be used for construction and when it can be used for construction. And in particular, it requires that before you start using the bond funds, you have to be able to show you have enough funds to complete the segment, a usable segment. And you also have to show that if you're going to put a segment into operation, that it's not going to require a subsidy, an operating subsidy. And it doesn't matter whether it's High-Speed Rail Authority itself that's running it or whether you sort of allow someone else to run it for you, because under the bond measure, it has to be not have a subsidy if it's being run by the authority or under the authority's authority. And under the law that set up the High-Speed Rail Authority, any high-speed rail operation, anything rails operation operating at over 125 miles an hour has to be done by the authorization of the High-Speed Rail Authority. So if it's being done in California and it's high-speed rail, it's being run by the authority. So I just wanted to point those out because they are concerns in terms of some of the discussion about using high-speed rail money, bond funds, to make improvements to conventional commuter rail. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blackman.
Okay. Acting Chair, we do have Ronald Rudolph in queue, but I'm just going to go over the instructions one more time to ensure anybody that joined, they have the ability to provide public comment. If you are logged into this meeting via Zoom, please use the raise your hand feature, typically located at the bottom of your screen so that I can call you to provide your public comment. If you're dialing in your phone, pressing *9 will be called in the order that their hand is raised. Once you've been in the queue and your name is called, in the web meeting, please click the prompt on your screen to allow your microphone to be unmuted. By the last 4 digits of your phone number. At that point, you'll hear a message that you are being unmuted. Once unmuted, it will be your turn to speak. Please slowly and clearly say and spell your first and last name. And if applicable, state the organization you represent. Our court reporter is on the line to record those comments. If they need you to spell or repeat something, they may interject. Ronald, you are up.
Hi, I wanted to give a quick comment. I did one this morning as well at the finance meeting, but I think this might be a more appropriate place. My comment basically consists of that based off of the governor's state mandate of, stay at home, stay safe order, that a lot of people don't have the ability to see the PDF or join these meetings due to lack of internet. And I do know that there is phone calls that they can call into host this meeting, but they don't know this meeting exists. So I'm asking to have the July 31st open comment period to be pushed further out, possibly, to the end of the year. So that way it gives the ability for people, in this case, East Los Angeles, the ability to go to their public library once that library does open, so they can see what's going on, so they can see the PDF, so they actually have something, as opposed to the people who can just have internet access to download this PDF and view it via the website. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ronald.
Acting Chair Richards, we do not have anyone queued up for public comment at this moment.
No, thank you very much. Colleagues will then move on with our agenda. Agenda item number 8 will be first. So if our CEO can queue up here, we'll take the CEO's report. CEO Kelly.
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to get into this. Before we do, though, I just want to ask you, did you want to do the minutes from the last hearing, or do you want to do that after?
I said I'd move it up to number 1. I'm happy to go ahead. Why don't we just do that? Thank you for that, Brian. We'll just jump to what is the number 1 item on your agenda, and we'll just do the minutes first. So unless we have from any of our colleagues on the board any changes to the April 21st minutes, can we have a motion for approval in a second?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it was a motion by Director Shank, and I'm sorry,
Yes.
Was it Jim Galmetti, was it?
Correa.
Okay, sorry, thank you, Henry. Second by Director Perea. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Hearing none, motion passed unanimously. Thank you. Brian, you're up now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, I wanted to just roll through elements of the. If you can hear me okay, much of what is in here we've had some discussion of in terms of why the agenda before you today looks like it does, and other advancements on the program overall. So I'm going to just roll through this with relative speed, and happy to answer any questions at the end, or even as we go through. So let's go to the next slide, please. The first slide. First is Chair Richards mentioned the business plan has been put off. It's item number 4 stricken from today's agenda until we get to an adoption at the end of the year, December 2020. This is now contained in a budget bill language that will likely be expected to be approved by the legislature tomorrow. This does give us an opportunity to advance work we are doing, recalibrate some of the things that we must recalibrate, risk assessments and things like that relative to COVID impacts. We want to make sure we subject some of our projections to further review, has been requested by legislature, and again, review risk analyses and ridership things with the peer review group before we get back to the board at the end of the year. So that's the status of that and why it's been pushed off from today's agenda. Next slide, please. Just in terms of COVID impacts, these are things I've mentioned to some of the board members in the past. The reason we want to do some additional risk analysis, we have, of course, seen some impacts to our cap and trade auction proceeds, which Brian Annis covered a little bit at the FNA hearing this morning. We have extended the track and systems procurement for the bidders on that to provide more time to be responsive and to understand what's going on in the financial markets for them, and so that's been done. And then, of course, as you've even heard on some of the public comment, there has been requests to extend public comment periods for environmental documents, and we've done that in 3 sections now, those listed there. And so these are the kinds of things that we want to that we know we're being impacted by, and want to conduct some further analysis on what these mean to the program in the long term, things that we'll be reviewing and then reporting on later in the year. Next slide, please.
Yeah, Brian, can I ask real quick, how long was the procurement extended for?
2.5 months was the extension for them to provide submittals and on the back end for any action by the board.
Thank you.
So with all these things going on, there's clearly COVID-19 has impacted broadly transit districts up and down the state. We are not immune from that, which is something that we've stated before and have walked with each member of the board with individually a little bit in the past several weeks and spoken to the legislature about as well. I do want to note, though, that while we've also been blessed a bit. And what I mean by that is the impacts have not stopped our ability to advance important work that we must advance to meet our requirements on the federal level. And so I want to just talk about a couple of those things. First of all, on the environmental front, it had been 5 years before since the authority had adopted or recorded a record of decision for a segment to certify the ROD for environmental documents. We did one in October of 2019. We're doing our second one in September of this year. And then you see that we've put out on the streets now 3 more draft EIR EIS documents in 2020. All of that's been done in the course of the last 9 months or so. And we'll have our 4th one dropping in July of 2020, San Francisco to San Jose. So we've really picked up the pace on the environmental process front. And you see by this chart just dates that we have to get these RODs done and the flow time associated with that. So I'm happy to report this is one of the places we are able to advance. Next slide. Much of this was covered in the F&A committee. I know not everybody's a part of that, but I will just cover here that we have made some, continue to make important advancements on the construction end. CP1, as Joe reported this morning, we got utility relocations now underway in the downtown Fresno area, important pre-development work to get that construction moving. We're beginning to start on 3 downtown Fresno bridges. Construction package 2-3, last month, $35 million in invoice, which is a big jump over prior months. We're expecting that to advance. They're up to 403 daily workers in that section. So again, we're seeing this construction stuff pick up pace in the valley. And on CP4, where we have most of the pre-construction work completed, we're now seeing the 3rd consecutive month where the contractor has reached full productivity on the construction side. Next slide. This is a slide that you've all seen before, but again, it does reflect advancement that we're able to make in the field as we go forward over the course of the last year or so. I think in January of 2019, in terms of the weekly workers dispatched to the project site, we were at about 217 or so. Through June 5th, that number jumped up to 905, quadrupling in the course of about a span of just over a year and a half on where we've been on workers getting dispatched to the work site. So again, even though we've had some issues with COVID-19, there's important advancement on the ground that we are making, and we're continuing to see that occur. Next slide. This is the next place where we're seeing, again, a good KPI on advancement, and this is our monthly expenditures. Again, Q1 in 2019, Q2 in 2019, we're spending about $20 million a month. That is now through Q1 of 2020, almost tripled up to $60 million a month. And our early projections for May show that rising closer to $70 million for that month. And so we see this number advancing month over month as we advance the construction work in the valley, and expect to see this to continue to grow. So I wanted to just cover that, again, we're moving the ball in the right direction on that front. Next slide. This is one that, again, I know many have seen before. The red line on the top is our construction progress on guideways. Again, at the beginning of last year, we were at 52 miles of guideways open. Now we're approaching 80 miles, about a 50% increase over the course of last year. And in terms of structures, we've now doubled the number of structures that are either completed or open for construction over the course of the last year or so. We have much to do in the months ahead, but I just wanted to reflect for folks that, again, even though we've had some impacts of COVID-19, we have to assess. we are able to advance the program on the ground, and that's important, and a trend that we must expand going forward. Next slide. We did celebrate last month reaching the total number of workers dispatched to the project since the commencement of construction, and we just reached 4,000. Workers had an opportunity to write what it means to them to work on the job, and that's sort of the depiction you're seeing here. But these are representatives from all trades that are out there doing the work on the construction site, and we're very pleased that number continues to expand as we go forward. So that's just, again, a snapshot of where we are continuing to progress the program, and I wanted to make sure that folks were aware that as we are working through several issues, we are fortunate enough and been blessed enough to allow construction to advance in a meaningful way. Next slide. Here, I just want to take a moment, members, to reflect a little bit on a dear colleague and friend who you all know well, and that is Diana Gomez, our regional director in the Central Valley, and has been the regional director on this project, along serving a staff person on this project, and a member, I think, since 2012. Diana, correct me if I'm wrong there, but I have a script on what I'm supposed to say about Diana, but I really don't need a script. I just want to say that Diana Gomez has been invaluable as we have progressed the work in the Central Valley. She is in many ways, in my view, the Central Valley, somebody born in the Central Valley, raised in the Central Valley, educated in the Central Valley, has unparalleled relationships with local partners in the Central Valley. And over her time here, she has done remarkable work to allow us to advance the program. In fact, many of you board members have heard in prior meetings, even more recently, concerns about whether we can solve recent issues like how we solve the Fresno Rescue Mission issue, which we need to be partners in buying and moving property for them, and that just got solved, and Diana was a big part of that. She's a big part of the Selma workforce training opening. She's a big part of virtually every agreement we reach with the local government in the Central Valley. And recently, Diana said to me a dream job for her has come available, and that dream job is being the district director for Caltrans in the Fresno region. She came to us from Caltrans after about a 25-year career at the department, and so she's done great work there, great work here. That job opportunity came open. I encouraged her to chase her dream job because it is a dream job for her. And I'm pleased that the District 6 Director for Caltrans in the Fresno region, who we have much work to do with, will be Diana Gomez. And so selfishly, I think that might work well for us as well. But I didn't want the day to pass. I know I sent a note to folks on this development recently, but I did not want the day to pass without taking a moment to recognize Diana, thank Diana for her years of service on this project, and more importantly, not just for being a dear colleague and valued staff person, but for being a tremendous friend to me. And Diana, I can't thank you enough. And I know you've seen one or two of these before. Ticket to ride, Diana, that you will certainly receive from us. But again, I wanted to just acknowledge your service, acknowledge all you've meant to me and this program. It's extremely personal to me, but I can't thank you enough. Wish you the very best, and I'm pleased that we'll still be working together on advancement in that region. So if it's okay with the members, I'd like to give Diana an opportunity to say a few words. And again, just thank you, Diana, for all you've done for us.
Thanks, Brian. This is a pretty an emotional, it was a very difficult decision. When I came to high-speed rail over 7 years ago, I wasn't sure what I was getting into. And but it's been an opportunity of a lifetime. And because I've been able to work with lots of people in the Central Valley, lots of stakeholders, those people that we impacted, and I've been able to establish a lot of special friendships. And so I really feel what we're doing here at High Speed Rail is going to be best for the Central Valley, my home since I was born. And so I was really, I've been very excited about working on this project, and lots of ups and downs, but at the end of the day, I think the relationships and the friendships that I've established, I will cherish forever. And I have learned a lot. I most definitely will be a better district director because of all my experience here at High Speed Rail. I do want to thank all of the current board members and past board members who have been very supportive of me. I do want to thank, Brian and the executive team for all your support throughout this adventure that I call this journey. And then a special thank you to my staff who has been with me all this time in supporting and us working together through not only some of the difficult times, but some of those great milestones that we achieved along the way. So I will continue, as I given my commitment to Brian, I will continue to support High Speed Rail in my new role at Caltrans, but also in whatever other capacity that you may need me to assist in. So again, thank you very much for the opportunity, and I look forward to riding this train one day. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Appreciate that. Mr. Chairman, with that, it certainly concludes my report, and happy to turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions for Brian from any of the members? Maybe before we do that, and if Diane is still on, I think Henry and I, even though Henry's reasonably new on the board, but he's been a long time collaborator with Diana long before he was on the board. And I have been incredibly fortunate for all 7 years that she's been with us to, just because of where I live, but to have spent a substantial amount of time with her, and have been fortunate also to be her coffee partner on numbers of occasions that we regularly tried to sit down and talk about things about high speed rail. So as Brian has stated, I couldn't be happier for her. I started out by, I think, originally telling her how sad I am, but for her having this opportunity to accomplish something that was a dream probably from the day she walked into the offices at Caltrans, it couldn't have happened for a better person. And we have been really, really fortunate to have her as a part of this team, and clearly on the front lines of all that's been going on, both pre-construction and during construction here. So I know that we're going to continue seeing her, and fortunately she's not quite a stone throw from the office, but not far enough that we can't find her. So all the best to Diana. I don't know if anybody else wants to say anything, but you're certainly more than welcome to do so.
Yeah, Tom, this is Henry. I'd like to say just a few words, if that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, Diana, first and foremost, other than that, we're going to miss you on this project. I mean, you and I have developed a very strong friendship that goes way beyond high speed rail. I mean, there were the years where we were running a statewide organization, encouraging young folks to get into the field of engineering, and I was more than happy to always be a part of helping you put that word out. But in that time frame, I understood and realized how committed you are to the Valley. So when you came to high speed rail 7 years ago, it wasn't a surprise to me that you were willing to take on such a challenge. And I can say, having been involved with high speed rail over 10 years from a local standpoint, remembering when we first went to speak to the high speed rail CEO at that time, asking him what is it we can do to prepare ourselves as a community to make sure high speed rail happens. And he paused for a second and he just said, he goes, there is no playbook on high speed rail in the United States. They go, just as we are writing it as we speak, I think you all will be a part of writing it. So use that as an opportunity. And I think Fresno did. But I think we did in the spirit of getting the project done for this entire state. But then when you came on board, it just seems like this project accelerated. And I mean, it's no surprise, you know, CP1 is in the heart of the San Joaquin Valley. Center is in the center of it. And it was because of your relationships and your efforts that I believe has brought us to where we are. But I certainly, you know, congratulate you. I'm glad that you're moving on to the dream job that you've always wanted. And of course, from a Valley perspective, it benefits us. So I know we're going to still be working together. And I would just ask that we stay in touch, because I think there's going to be a lot of great things happening. And Diana, we wish you well. And I hope we find another Diana Gomez to help keep this project moving forward.
Here. Thank you, Henry.
Tom, I'd like to say something, if I may.
Sure, Lynn.
Thank you. Diana, I wish you all the best. I've been affiliated with High Speed Rail for 39 years, and I have never come across a single person other than you for whom there has only been good talked about. Even during the most difficult times in the Central Valley, when people came before our board to castigate us or the CEO or the legislature, there are always good words for Diana Gomez, and that is so impressive. And I know that you take the experiences at High Speed Rail and will utilize them at Caltrans District 6. I just echo what everyone has said in wishing you all the best. And if I can ever be there for you, please let me know. I mean, the Central Valley is the backbone of California. I'm in the southern part, the tailbone of California, but know how important the Central Valley is, particularly in the area of transportation. So all the best to you, and stay in touch.
Thank you, Lynn.
Tom, if I could just add, I'll be very brief, but I just want to thank Diana for her professionalism and her unflappable nature. I mean, honestly, given all of the issues we have had in the Central Valley, your ability to just move the ball forward was an amazing accomplishment. You should be very proud, as we are, of you. So good luck, and I know this isn't goodbye. Take care.
Thank you, Nancy. All right.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry.
Did I just step on it?
Andre.
Hi, Andre.
Diana, we didn't work together on High Speed Rail, but I do know you from other venues, and I look forward to seeing you taking charge of District 6. Congratulations, and I wish you all the best. I do have a question for Brian, if you don't mind.
Please, go ahead, Andre.
Since I'm probably the last speaker on the subject. Some of the public comments raised a concern about public comment on the environmental document for the LA area and requested a delay till January 2021. Is that a possibility? That's for Brian. What does the peer review entail that you are proposing of the ridership and the risk assessment, and how those will be done? Will those involve new consulting teams that will come on board to take those independently, or will those be done by the same people that have done the work so far?
Let me take your first question first, Andre. On the environmental document, we have released most recently the Burbank to Anaheim, Burbank to Los Angeles segment stretch, and there has been a request to us formally to extend the comment period for that stretch in light of sort of COVID-19 issues and shutdown issues, and we have extended that period further, extending it all, and we are conducting our public hearings as best we can, like every state agency, in the middle of this COVID crisis through virtual means, online ways of doing this. To the extent people are having trouble getting access, there's certainly a call-in option. where people are having any trouble getting access to documents, I would say to folks, a simple request of us, either by through our website, our contact information on the website, or and asking for that information, we can get back to people. To extend that public comment period as far as some of the callers have suggested, all the way in the beginning of next year, will run us into problems of meeting our federal requirements on the environmental document approval dates. And so I think I want to be very cautious about any further extensions, or certainly an extension of that duration, but I also want to be very responsive to public requests for documents, which we can be through, again, all electronic means possible, and then even a written or phone call request of people receiving documentation, we can send it to them. So we've had already an extension once on all 3 of our segments that are out now, and we will be as responsive as we can to make sure people see the drafts. And so that's where we stand on that issue. In terms of the peer review matter, this is really in response to things I heard when I was testifying at the legislature on where we were, and some conversations we've had since then, some exchanges by letter between, I think, the chairman of the Assembly Transportation Committee, the speaker, and our chairman, of a request to look at our ridership numbers that we had contained in the business plan. That included the work that the ETO did on the side-by-side, for example. And what we've agreed to, and what I think is a fair idea and that the authority has done before, is have some independent peer review work done to look at and confirm or suggest any recommended changes to those projections. And so I do not see that being done by the same consultant team. What I'd like to do is work with the peer review group itself on who might be good to do that work. In years past, we've used other entities who have looked at phase 1 and valley-to-valley ridership numbers. Most recently, those were looked at by an independent financial audit group. And so, the idea is to find an independent view to come in and look at those. And Andre, I'm happy to talk to you about that.
I would love to continue this discussion. I would really emphasize that a fresh look by a different set of eyes would really help, hopefully, move this ball forward here, so we're not spinning wheels in the same place. I appreciate the answers. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. I wanted to interject for a moment, if I might. I have asked Brian to be in touch with his team, however he chooses to do so, to be in touch with each of the members of the board in the near term, to give you his plan as it's developing for what's going to occur with regards to review and study of issues in and around the business report, and others that he will undertake, or his team will undertake, between now and the business plan coming back to you for approval in December. So I know none of those phone calls have been set up yet, but he will be doing that, or a member of his team, so that he can go over these things with you, and also compile a list of any things that you wanted to either talk to him about or see in one way or another to be integrated with what we're doing over these next 5 months.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Mm-hmm. Yes, please.
I'm very happy, first of all, to hear that we're going to recalibrate and we're going to reassess, how to go forward, how to move forward on this issue of high-speed rail. I would just appreciate from Brian to also please consider developing some alternative budget scenarios. In light of the fact that we're still in a COVID economy, which is bad, and I think it's going to last until next year. And I would love to see alternative budget scenarios that reflect a different reality. More or less, trying to do what we call scenario planning, so that if this economy doesn't, get better, say within the next 6 to 9 months, that we have to consider making some changes, and I'm just only doing this because I just want to make sure that that we hold in trust, the taxpayers' dollars. That's frankly our fiduciary obligation as board members. And I look forward to having this discussion, with Brian and his team. So I really do appreciate, Mr. Chairman, that Brian is going to be talking to us individually about this.
Thank you, Martha. Any other comments for our CEO?
Yeah, I have one, Mr. Chairman. Brian, I just wanted to, on the CP1, and I follow all of the Finance and Audit Committee meetings as well as reports that are sent out to us. I just want to circle back, understanding we have that December 2022 deadline. What your level of confidence is with staff and the consultants and all that we have on board to make our deadline.
Well, I think, we've described that in the past, Henry, as, a very daunting deadline. But what we're doing, what our COO is doing in real time, is putting together, doing all the work necessary to re-baseline the schedules for each of the construction packages. I'm happy we are advancing the environmental work appropriately. These are all the things that we need to do. As both others know and have seen comments from other members, we don't know everything about the COVID-19 impacts. I've noticed some areas and told you all areas those are being impacted. We want to apply a more rigorous risk analysis to those RBS schedules and to our program generally. So getting to Chair Member Scutia's comments, we are presenting you the best, most informed information and the proper scenario aligned with that information. And so, look, the task is daunting. We're throwing everything we can at it, and we're going to bring to you all, as we work forward this year, a more detailed sort of assessment of how we see it. And I think we have to really, incorporate into that all of the COVID-19 impacts that we're experiencing.
Just in listening to your presentation and the common sense, what popped into my head, at least maybe for us to consider, and I don't know if Caltrans would be interested, but is there any value in us considering adding Caltrans as part of the project management team or any other function related to CP1, especially now in light of the fact that we have Diana Gomez as the District 6 administrator? Are there, I guess it'd be worth looking into or thinking about, are there any potential opportunities to accelerate movement of that project with that kind of partnership? I'll just leave it there and you can let me know.
Yeah, Henry, I could follow up with you on more detail on this stuff, but I would just say this. I think there are areas where we will, not necessarily in the project management area, but in some of the other areas where we certainly benefit from expertise that the department has. And I do want to incorporate that in various places. And again, we can come back and talk about it in more detail.
Thank you, Rodney.
Thank you. Any other comments for the CEO?
Mr. Chair, if I may, I feel like I missed a chance to speak on Diana and really wanted to give a local perspective if I could, as both you and Chairman Perea have.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As the assemblyman who represents the Fresno area, I just wanted to speak a moment about the importance that Diana has played in our community. As we've worked hard to get 4,000 people to work, she has been a pillar and a staunch advocate in our community and helped to lead some very difficult conversations. Her professionalism and ability to be instrumental in this project is going to be sorely missed, and I just wanted to take a moment to wish her luck. But I really wanted to speak to her, if I could, about the inspiration that she has been for an entire generation of women and women of color who will want to become engineers and build tomorrow today. Diana, you've done that. You've done that by leading by example, and I'm proud of what you've been able to do. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to be able to address that.
Okay, thank you. I think we're ready to move on then. Thank you for the CEO report. Let's now move on to to item number 2, which is the independent peer review audit. And we've got with us Paula Rivera, our chief auditor. Paula.
Good morning.
Good
I'm
morning.
Paula Rivera, Chief Auditor for the Authority. Today, I bring to you 2 different items. The first is the results of our external peer review. We follow 2 different sets of audit standards at the Authority. The International Standards for the Professional Practice of Internal Auditing and the Generally Accepted Governmental Auditing Standards. And each apply to different types of work. But both sets of standards require that we develop a quality control system to assure that we comply with those standards. And of that internal control, quality assurance system, there are 2 components. An internal component, which we perform annually. Internally, we review our work to be sure it complies with the things that we've set up. And there's an external component where we have someone come in every 3 years to do an independent evaluation of our system. Our peer review was in February, and today I'm proud to let you know that they found that our system is suitably designed and is operating effectively in order to comply with the audit standards. The reviewers had 2 recommendations for areas of improvement that we agree with and we're working to implement.
Thank you, Paula. Any questions or comments for Paula? Other than a job really well done, Paula, I would like to have in the minutes, if the board does acknowledge the receipt of the external peer review of the audit office, and ask that the board secretary please note in the minutes the report was received and filed. And with that, Paula, we can move on to item number 3, the internal audit plan. And if I might, before Paula starts, I would like to just let our colleagues know that the report or the plan itself had input from members of the Finance and Audit Committee, as well as our CEO. While we don't vote on it make a motion to recommend its approval to you at the board, I just thought it was appropriate to let you know that the Finance and Audit Committee has reviewed it, has had input into some of the audit requests. And so Paula, with that, please go forward.
Okay, thank you. I bring to you today our proposed audit plan for next fiscal year. As Tom mentioned, the audit plan is developed with input from the members of the Finance and Audit Committee and the executive leadership of the authority. We solicit topics. We also use our own experience, things we've noticed in other audits, or we put all those audit topics together, audit management, then risk ranks those topics, and we look at our current staffing, and then we determine which audits we can complete in the next fiscal year. So what I have before you today is the audit plan for next fiscal year. There are 3 carryover audits. One is a long-term audit of contracts. We're looking to see that the contractor and all the subcontractors have complied with the agreement with a focus on cost incurred and compliance with the federal regulations. We have another audit that we're nearing completion on of the ERA grant match submissions. And then we're also working on an audit of contract management. This is an audit that we've been doing every couple of years, and this one that we're having progress is focusing on following up on the state auditor recommendations from last November. The 3 new audits that we're proposing for this year's plan are an audit of the overall grant management, an audit of procurement, and an audit of data validation for 2 systems that have gone live with the authority in the last couple of years. Are there any questions?
Yes,
Any
yes, I
any-
have a question, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, please.
Paula, thank you so much for your report. And the question that I have is with regard to the audit of contract management. What exactly does that mean? What exactly does that entail?
So we look at the policies and procedures that the authority has in place for contract management. There are 9 unique policies and another 9 procedures that direct contract managers in how to be performing their responsibilities. There's also a state contract manual and other information that we use as the yardstick, so that we interview different contract managers to understand how they're complying with those policies and procedures. We also then look at their documentation.
Okay, so if there's no compliance, then what happens?
Then we would identify those areas of non-compliance, and then we would identify those in our audit report. And that audit report is issued to the Finance and Audit Committee, in addition to Brian Kelly. And then it would, the program managers over the programs that are affected. We have a lot of contract managers in our program delivery office, but we also have other types of contracts, administrative contracts or IT contracts or environmental, that'd be program delivery. So it would be directed to the office chief of the area where those contract managers report.
So if the contract manager does not, meet the goals, say of our manuals, is that contract manager given an opportunity to remedy the defect, to, try to do good, for the future, for future purposes?
Oh, yes. The way as internal auditors, our goal is not to identify issues as a gotcha. We're looking to improve the operations of the authority by giving some independent advice. So we would talk to the contract manager, be sure we understood the situation. If there's missing documentation, maybe it's someplace else, understand their perspective. And then there's always an opportunity for us to meet with management so that they understand the issue. Often, especially with contract management, because it's such a broad audit, issues are resolved before we even get to the point of having an exit conference.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Scucci. Any other questions for Paula? Hearing none, members, this is a action item, and we need a motion for approval for resolution number HSRA 20-02.
So moved.
Thank you. And
Second.
thank you very much. Could you just identify yourselves for the court reporter? The motion was by whom?
Nancy Miller.
And
Okay.
it was seconded by Martha Scutia.
Okay, thank you both very much. We have a motion and second. Do we all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Passed unanimously. Thank you very much, members. And Paula, thank you very much. You're doing a great job, and you know how much we appreciate what you've been doing. I didn't say it a moment ago with regards to your peer review audit, but it's amazing. And just thinking about where our audit office has come from over the last few years to where they are now. Not that they were doing a poor job, but they weren't credited with the amount of experience necessary to do the things they're doing today, and they're representing us well, and we appreciate your work.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate your support.
All right, we're now going to move on to the 2021 budget and baseline revision adoption. Brian Annis, please. Thank you.
Sure. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and board members. What I'm presenting today to you is an action item. Board policy does require we bring forward each year's proposed fiscal year budget. The board also adopts a multi-year or program baseline budget, and we are proposing a change to that as well today. If we go on to third page. So starting here with the current program baseline budget, this is from last May 2019. The board adopted the current budget. You can see here in this table that the total baseline budget is $15,613,000,000. It's here summarized in four major categories. The Central Valley segment, including track and systems, it totals $12.4 billion. That's the Madera to Poplar Avenue section. Also, the second category, the Phase 1 RODs or Phase 1 environmental documents from San Francisco all the way to Anaheim. There's $841 million in the baseline for those. Third category is the bookends or early investments, such as the LA Union Station, which was brought to the board in April. And of course, prior years, the board has approved the Caltrain electrification and some other grade separations north and south under those bookend investments. And lastly, there's what we call other funded scope here, which includes various program-wide support and contingencies, interim use reserves, et cetera, some historic expenditures. And again, the total for the existing baseline the board adopted about a year ago is this $15.6 billion. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the revision we're proposing here. And that revision is to add a budget for pre-construction activities. These would include activities for sections where the environmental process is complete. Examples of this work would include preliminary engineering, right-of-way mapping, and design advancement. We want to get started on these activities because this is a lesson learned we've identified in some of our past reports. When we started the ARA projects in the Central Valley, of course, we were on a very tight timeline to meet the October 2017 ARA reimbursement deadline, and we didn't have all of the right-of-way mapped. We didn't have all the utilities identified, and some of these other pre-construction activities completed before we started construction. And the lesson learned and what we want to do going forward, as stated in prior business plans, is make sure we stay on top of that pre-construction work and take advantage of the completion of environmental documents to get started. I'll mention, as Brian Kelly's CEO report stated, we do have a series of environmental documents that will be completing in the coming fiscal year with the Merced Y coming, as well as Bakersfield to Palmdale segment, and I believe the Burbank to LA segment was also scheduled to be completed in the following fiscal year. So in this budget, baseline adjustment would allow us to advance some of that pre-construction work to be able to move more expeditiously when funding is identified to move forward on future segments. Go on to the next slide. This slide displays the capital outlay budget for the fiscal year. What is proposed is a budget of $2.9 billion, and that's the column in the middle here. We also, for comparison's sake, show the adopted budget, what the board adopted a year ago for the current fiscal year. Just identify three of the major categories of how the $2.9 billion would break down. $145 million of it is directed to project development. That's finishing our environmental work. $2.4 billion associated with the Central Valley construction. And of that number, about $1.3 billion would be for the design build contracts currently working in the Central Valley. And lastly, $350 million is for the bookend projects, again, the Caltrain and the LA Union Station primarily. And again, this is the anticipated expenditures for the budget year in the area of capital outlay. And if there's no questions, I'll move on then to the administration or state operations budget for next year. This particular state operations budget does tie to what the governor proposed and the legislature we think will adopt tomorrow in the negotiated budget agreement. It does increase this portion of the authority's budget to about $73.6 million. And that is due primarily to the proposals we submitted. We called them form to function, looking across the organization at our consultants and our state staff, and to see that we had the right people in the right roles here at the authority. And this was also a output of a state audit in 2018 to ensure that we do have state workers and consultants placed in the appropriate roles. That has added, increased our state operations budget, but it's more than offset with savings that we will see on our capital outlay side. We'll have a reduced consultant payment in these areas because we're adding the state staff here. And again, at the bottom of this table, you see the state positions going from 271 to 356. I will note that this particular budget is subject to further adjustment by the Department of Finance as part of the budget proposal to reduce expenditures at the state from some salary reduction measures. And the governor is negotiating with some of the bargaining units to generate a savings from state worker salaries, and we expect to get more detail on that in the future. And again, this budget will ultimately be changed a bit through those Department of Finance actions. Next slide. So this is a similar information on our state operations budget, but broken out by function. You'll see most of our state operations funding goes to salaries, wages, and benefits. You also see this is where we pay rent on our buildings, pay for our information technology equipment, et cetera. But this sums to the same total. It's just a different breakdown of how we split up the expenditures. Next slide. This shows you how our positions are allocated among different offices at the authority. The biggest increase here, if you look at the third column of numbers, shows that where most of our state staff being added are in the program delivery office, but we have information technology growing a bit in a few other offices. And again, these new state positions would be replacing consultants as we phase them in. Next slide. So again, the request of the board here for this action item is to approve a augmentation to the baseline budget of $23 million for pre-construction activities that would adjust up that baseline to $15,636 million, and also approve our fiscal year budgets, $2.9 billion for capital outlay and $73.6 million for state operations. And that concludes the presentation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Janice. Any questions for our CFO with regards to this item?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Director Scuccia.
And it's basically for Brian. If you can take us back to slide number 7 of your presentation. Yeah, I was noticing there about consulting and professional services external. And the reason why that caught my attention was because in the report by Paula Rivera in terms of auditing, especially auditing of program managers, is the consulting and professional services include the money that we pay, for program managers such as, say, WSP? And the reason why I'm concerned about it is because, WSP, has an issue involving whistleblowers. allegations of whistleblowing, and I don't know if that's true or not true, but that remains to be determined by hopefully an independent investigation. So I would like to find out, where is the money that we pay to these consultants? Is it right there in that line item?
Well, in the particular contract you mentioned of WSP, that's funded actually on a capital budget because those folks are very much involved in the construction activity. So this line item is really intended for more of the other consulting services that would not be so construction.
All right. Okay, so then that means if it's a capital budget, that's either slide number 5 or number 6. Can we go back to that?
Sure.
I think it's slide number, it must be 5 because there it is, capital outlay. Where in all these line items would the money for program managers like WSP be located?
For the most part, the bulk of it would be in the construction subtotal. They do have some folks working on the environmental work as well. So it would really be split up mostly in those first 2 categories.
Would it be possible to get a breakdown of that?
Yes. Yeah, we could certainly follow up with you and give you the amount budgeted for WSP for each of those 2 categories.
All right. Okay. I will hold my questions until I get this information. And then obviously we're going to talk to Brian about, reassessing and recalibrating, but obviously this is of great interest to me. So I'm just giving you a preview. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Annis? Hearing none, this is yes? Did I miss somebody? Okay. This is an action item. So we need a motion for approval of the 2020-21 budget and baseline vision.
Motion. So moved.
One more time, please.
So moved, Lynn.
All right, thank you. And a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Objections? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to be recorded as an abstention. I don't have enough information to vote on this. Thank you.
Fine. Thank you. Thank you, Director Escutia. Please note 1 abstention. Moving on to the financial consultant procurement. And Mr. Annis, you're back up.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is another action item. This is a request for board approval to finalize and issue the request for proposal for the financial advisor and commercial services. This is for a request for proposal not to exceed $36 million over 4 years. This would consolidate services from 3 separate contracts into a single contract. And we think through this and other efficiencies, we actually bring down the annual expenditure on this type of work by about 28%. And I'll speak more to that in the coming slides. Next slide. So as a little bit of history, the authority has financial services through contract for a number of years, since 2009. The current contract that's expiring for financial advisor actually is split between 2 firms, KPMG and Ernst & Young. That in total was a $40 million 4-year contract. Additionally, we have utilized some of the Rail Delivery Partner or WSP contract for some of our economic analysis work and some other commercial advising. An example of this is the economic impact report we had brought to the board in April that talked about the jobs and economic impact of the high-speed rail program to date. So again, when you total up our annual average expenditure over the last 4 years for these 3 contracts and look at about a 4-year of inflation, we're bringing it down from about $12.5 million a year down to a proposed $9 million a year level. And again, we believe we can fully address all of the necessary workload here, but with a reduced budget. Next slide. So I want to go through just a couple of the highlights of what will be in this request for proposal scope. First category is the high-speed rail commercial planning and procurement advisory services. And here we take advantage of skills the financial consultants have that are generally not available in the state workforce. They do have specialty knowledge in areas such as major procurements, where they may look at things like the financial capacity of these international firms that bid on our contracts. They do advise us on contract structure to try to lower risk to the state and things of that nature. They also provide financing and funding advisory services. They assist with the business plan and project update report analyses. And to access our Proposition 1A bond funds, we need to compile what we call Part C and Part D funding plans, which is a requirement of the Bond Act. And they assist us with that analysis and putting together those various reports that are required either by state law or in some cases for federal grants. Again, that work tends to be one time or in other cases occasional. It may come around once every 2 years or so and only exist really at a high level for a few months. So again, we do take advantage of both the special expertise the financial advisor can bring and also the ability to surge workload, if you will, or surge workforce to address shorter periods of higher workloads. Next slide. Let's see. We advanced 2 slides. Could we go one back? So additional scope items, business and economic advisory services, as I mentioned. This would be items like the economic impact analysis report we brought to the board in April. They also provide, next bullet, the project financial advisory services. They help do things in the accounting office like transition to a new accounting system or reconcile our project cost system to our statewide accounting system. So they're able to be a bit of a quality check on some materials, especially when we're converting again to new processes or new systems. And lastly, some of their workload is related to tracking their own management performance. And they do include a small business requirement in this contract, as is true with other authority contracts. Next slide. Efficiencies we mentioned. Again, we're achieving efficiency through consolidation. We will transition over time. For example, when we bring on the new consultant, if the financial advisor does change, we would have an overlap period for knowledge transfer, where we have some services performed currently by the rail delivery partner. We would look at transitioning those over time when it makes sense as well for contract continuity. And again, this together, we believe we can generate a 28% efficiency through those in measures such as our increased state staff and other areas where, again, we were able to have a matured organization through advanced certain processes and efficiencies across the organization. Next slide. I just wanted to end here with some examples of upcoming work and we feel this is a simple contract. We will, of course, continue annually to have business plans and project update reports. And a financial advisor helped us with looking at scenarios such as the securitization of future cap and trade revenues and things of that nature that are included in business plans. We will also, as we advance major procurements in future years, their services, I think, really can more than pay for themselves in terms of the financial advising to reduce risk for the state and optimize how we structure contracts for these major procurements. They will help us as well doing the work to access future funding, such as the Prop 1A bond funds. And lastly, wanted to mention that the board called on the financial advisor in the past to do special work for the board. The most recent example was the Central Valley business case that F&A committee chair asked the financial advisor to perform last year. And of course, that was released in February with the business plan and was well received by the peer review group and I believe the legislature as well. Next slide. So again, that concludes the presentation. We're requesting that the board approve the resolution that would allow us to go forward with the request for proposal. We will bring back to the board the proposed contract for award. So you will hear this item again in the future when we're recommending a conclusion of the procurement process. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Question, Brian.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. This is Lynn. As I asked or commented during the pre-board meeting briefing, I think it's a time that we, once again, either include in the RFP and certainly in the interview process, their experience internationally with high-speed rail projects. I mean, a lot of advisors have experience with very big infrastructure projects, but there are some unique aspects to high-speed rail, and it would be helpful to be able to build on that expertise and experience.
And Director Schenk, I think we can easily accommodate that. We do have a section of the draft RFP that has a past performance and experience criteria, and that's trying to get at how the proposer has illustrated successful delivery on past projects of similar scope. But to your suggestion, I would be happy to add high-speed rail specifically in there. So it amend that to say something like illustrated successful delivery on past high-speed rail projects or projects of similar scope and complexity. So we'd be happy to amend that as we finalize the RFP.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Director Schenk. Any other questions for Mr. Ennis?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Are they
Yes,
going? Is the consultants going to be involved in the actual evaluation?
I'm sorry, which evaluation are you speaking of?
Evaluation of the proposals.
The current consultant, is that what your question?
Yes.
No, we're kind of in a, there's a very rigid process for a fair procurement. So kind of in a period where we can't discuss this procurement outside formal avenues. So any proposer, be they the current financial advisor firm or other firms that are bidding, have the same access to information and the same information through a formal process of asking questions, etc. So the process is set up to be fair to any bidder.
No, I think you misunderstood. Are one of the bidders that are helping us, the financial advisors, will they be involved in the evaluation?
Ernie, are you talking about would KPMG, our current advisor, be involved in the evaluation?
Yes.
No.
Okay.
That's correct. Yeah. They, again, the current financial advisor, again, we had both KPMG and Ernst & Young as on the current contract. So both of those firms would be eligible to bid in the new procurement. And again, they're not, none of the current firms are eligible to participate other than as a bidder.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Ennis?
I'm sorry. Go right ahead, Lynn.
Oh, that's okay. Go ahead, Marta. I'll follow you.
All right, Mr. Ennis, if I can take you back to your slide number 5. No, this is not it. It's the slide on the financial advisor. Nope, that's not it. There it is, right here, slide number 5. The second bullet point involving commercial advice on major upcoming procurements. First of all, my question is, what's commercial advice? And which major upcoming procurements are you talking about? Are you talking about the the track and systems procurement that we're going to vote upon allegedly in November?
Yes, yeah, that is an active ongoing procurement. I think both for the the procurement process itself. They could also advise us as we go to final contract on the award of that. I don't believe any other major procurements would go to contract award in this upcoming fiscal year. So in the case of the budget year 2021, I think the only, again, procurement that would possibly go to implementation through a contract is the track and systems contract.
So by when do you expect to get this commercial advice on that type of procurement?
Well, it's really ongoing. In these bigger procurements, there's really a process during evaluation where bidders can ask questions, and sometimes there's addendums or changes to the RFP. And again, those issues as they come up are evaluated by a team that includes legal expertise, includes commercial expertise. And when we say commercial, it's things like, how is that the financial risk for the authority? Would it increase our financial risk or make it more favorable for us? And so again, there's various issues around bonding, meaning that the financial assurance of the bidders on a contract. Do they have the financial resources to complete the project and their scope of work? So there's things of that nature that we term as commercial. That a financial.
Okay, I'm very happy to hear you talking about financial risk, because I've been very concerned about our fiduciary obligation as we take these votes that may put the authority at risk. And so it worries me tremendously. Maybe I'm taking my job as a board member too seriously. Now, will we as a board have enough time to analyze this commercial advice on major upcoming procurements before we take that vote on track and systems in November? Will we have enough time to review the material coming forth from this new financial advisor?
Yes. Well, I guess as we get close to a package to bring to the board, certainly whatever types of briefings the board members desire, it'd be we could set those up. And if your briefing, if there's a desire to hear directly from the financial advisor, that's something we'd be able to set up.
So you're going to set up those briefings before the November vote?
Again, we offer board briefings before all board meetings, and I
know that, but I'm talking about this financial advisor for which we're going to vote for an RFP right now. When will this financial advisor come on board, and when will this financial advisor have some information, advice for us on the track and systems contract?
Mm-hmm. Well, again, we have an existing financial advisor. The new financial advisor would come on board toward the end of September, and would have a bit of a transition period from October through December.
Thank you. No more questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Scuccia. Any other questions?
Mine is just a comment. I made this to you, Brian, before, but it just had to do with the key personnel, because I'm not so much concerned about what firm we select, but the personnel we select, and making sure that if personnel leave a company, which happens all the time in these large institutions that typically bid on these kinds of contracts, that we're able to follow those individuals, should that be our preference, and not have to be in a contract dispute with someone because of the substitute team that they want to present us with. So I'm not sure of that contract language. I know we've had issues with that in the past, and I just want to make sure that that is something that our contract team addresses in the RFP.
Sure. Yeah, that is certainly important. We do evaluate the team in part on their individual experience, because clearly we're looking for some experts to come in and advise us. So they do present, the RFP requires them to submit resumes, and they are forwarding a specific team. And if there's a change in that team, we would look to evaluate any replacements and look for them to be equivalent or above in skill and experience of the people they're replacing. And as we discussed, there's also a termination clause if we feel they change or propose changes to the extent that they're no longer living up to the what we're looking for in the contract.
All right, Brian, thank you very much. Anybody else want to ask any questions? Hearing none, this is again an action item, so we needed a motion for approval to release this request for proposals to resolicit financial advisor services.
So moved.
By Nancy Miller, Director Miller, second please.
Second from Henry.
Second from Director Perea. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any objections?
Escutia, no.
Thank you. One no. Motion passes, and thank you very much, colleagues. We will now move on to the final item on our agenda today, which is just the Finance and Audit Committee report. And I have attempted to feverishly edit what I was going to say because much of what I had had on my list of things to talk to you about with regards to the earlier meeting today has already been covered, and I don't want to have you have to listen to this twice. So it'll sound somewhat disjointed, and there's only 3 or 4 points I would make to you. One was semi-addressed also. With regards to our cash management, I think that Brian Annis said we've got about $2.6 billion. That did not include the proceeds of the February cap and trade audit, auction, which was another 153. The value of invoices paid for the period that was reviewed today at Finance and Audit meeting was about 179 million for that month, which is trend-wise greater than March and February before it. And by the way, we're looking, we have a lag in what we're looking at when we're at Finance and Audit. So what the numbers we've been talking about are numbers for April of 2020. At that point in time, 83% of our fiscal year had passed. We had spent about 56.4% of our budget, which was down slightly from where we were at the same time in April of 2019. Personnel vacancies were 18.8%. They have subsequently improved by going down to 15%. With regards to our match, which is something we always pay attention to, the match with the federal government on our grant, our match requirement at the state is about $2.5 billion. Currently approved is $477 million. Pending at the FRA with what's just been forwarded this week is $1 billion and 59. And then what we have in process here at the authority is another 718. So when you add all those together, that's a $2,254,000,000, which is about 90% of the state's obligated match. One thing that we look at, and we have not seen any movement in, and I'm certainly to some degree concerned, and I'm not quite sure the reason, other than we know that as construction improves, we will do better with regards to our aspirational small business utilization, which is at about 21.4% of our work. The aspirational goal is 30%. Our Central Valley status report projections are really in a process of update, and that's being done by our Chief Operating Officer with regards to rebaselining schedule. We'll be reporting that out to you as that occurs over these next few months, and will certainly be a major component of what will be looked at before the business plan is brought back to you in December. We are we're averaging over the first 10 months of the year about 51 or 52 million in construction each month. It's been moving up, as our CEO mentioned. It was 60 most recently. We're looking at about, we believe, around 70 for July. What we need to do to make the our grant requirements to complete the work by the end of December of 22 is we're going to need to average about 110. So you can see the challenge before us and the work that's going on in the CEO's shop and moving construction forward at a greater rate than it has been in the past, and has been reported to you substantially better than it has, but we've got certainly a ways to go. And I think that's pretty much, as I look through my list and crossed out the others, I think that's pretty much what I have to say. Any questions or comments on that? Hearing none, that does conclude the agenda items for today, and I would like I'd like to close with the following, if I may. I'd like to adjourn today's meeting in memory of Colleen Carlson, who passed away recently. Ms. Carlson was the county council of Kings County. She was an ardent advocate for the interests of her community, and though that often meant taking positions strongly in opposition to this program, she served her county with intelligence and distinction. Many of us at the authority worked with Ms. Carlson over the years that we were at odds with Kings County and they with us, which, as we all know, have been resolved to the satisfaction of both parties. We grew to have great respect for Ms. Carlson, and on behalf of the ones who were more often involved in those negotiations and work with Kings County, Brian Kelly, Tom Filens, Diana Gomez, and our previous chair before Lenny took over, Dan Richard. We would like to send our condolences to her family and friends and her professional colleagues. And I'd like to ask our board secretary to convey to the Kings County Board of Supervisors to the attention of its chair, Doug Verboon, that this meeting was adjourned in honor of Colleen. And ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of today's meeting. Thank you around the state to all of you who have listened to us and those who made comments. We wish you good health, and we will talk with everybody next month. All the best. Good day. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.